Hello, everybody. Welcome to Charting with Dan, and a good Monday evening to you. I'm Dan Murrell, joined by Lon Harris. How you doing, Lon?
Doing great. What a night to chart.
What a night to chart.
Yeah.
A lot of we knew that this was going to be it this past weekend, but Frozen 2, one of the movies that overperformed by estimations. Frozen 2 absolutely dominating the box office, both domestically here in North America and around the world. Let's look first at the domestic numbers. Frozen 2 took in just over $130 million in its first 3 days. That is well over the $67 million take of the last film in its first weekend of wide release. However, direct comparisons are tough. The last Frozen film opened for one weekend in limited release, and then it was over the holiday and it spread. So this is not a one-to-one comparison, but if you're just looking at 3 day to 3 day, it's a massive jump from what the last film did. It did about $30 million leading into that opening weekend. One thing that we do know is that this film, Frozen 2, scored an A- on the cinema score compared to the A+ from the last movie, indicating that perhaps the audience cooled a little bit between 2013 and today, or maybe just for this specific movie, but still $130 million domestically, and will look worldwide where it set a new record for an animated film. Not too shabby.
Pretty big. I feel like you and I did see this coming. Like a lot of the prognosticators, maybe not. We have been talking on this show about Frozen 2 being a juggernaut for some time.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a degree in box office science, but still,
which I have,
which we both have. Exactly, it's the most useless degree in the world.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I feel like you could look at what was coming out for the rest of the year. This was always one that jumped out at me, at you, being like, it's had so long to build.
And Disney's had a lot of success putting films out in this window in the last several years. Moana, Ralph Breaks the Internet. A lot of films, obviously not to this degree because this is Frozen, but have had success. And this is honestly a great place to launch a family film because you're right before Thanksgiving, before the Thanksgiving holiday here in North America, which means a lot of families are going to be going to the movies. Plus, you're setting yourself up to play for the next month. And this is actually great for movie studios and distributors because we have this year the shortest possible time between the Thanksgiving holiday and the Christmas holiday, which means that you get a big holiday weekend this weekend and then the minimum amount of time possible before another huge, basically 2-week movie box office extravaganza at the end of next month. So yeah, this Frozen 2 is going to be in the mix with all the other ones as we go into December.
I also wonder, and obviously there's no way to ever check this, but I wonder what impact the launch of Disney Plus just a few weeks ago had. People are in a very Disney mindset. Now they've had access to the original Frozen and all these other Disney musicals to watch and stream and enjoy over the past 2 weeks. And now, boom, this huge one hits theaters. I feel like they've gotten everybody in Disney mode.
Well, Disney did about, as they reported, they had about 10 million signups. Now, whether that's trials, whether that includes trials, free trials, the 7 days, whatever, we don't know. But they claim, 10 million people signed up in some capacity to Disney Plus.
That was just in the first week.
In the first weekend. Yeah. We're going to look at the bits index, but the attendance was about 15-ish million people if you just look by average ticket prices. So, I'm sure a good chunk of that were the Disney customers that went and maybe watched the first one and said, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to go out and see it first weekend. But Disney is sort of in the zeitgeist because of and it's no accident.
Yeah,
that Mandalorian is hitting as Rise of Skywalker is hitting.
Sure.
And that Frozen 2 is hitting as, this is it's all carefully planned and orchestrated in the Death Star. Yeah. So let's look at where Frozen stands as far as other November releases, because it set some marks domestically. It set the big mark worldwide, but it set a few domestic marks, or at least was in contention. First of all, top 5 November openings just for the month comes in at number 5, below the second Hunger Games film, Catching Fire, then Twilight New Moon and Twilight Breaking Dawns Part 1 and 2. Then you've got Frozen 2 there. That's just raw numbers, not adjusted for inflation. But of course, thanks, as we mentioned before, to our good friend and Shimodan pal, Chandru Dandapani, we can do the bits index again.
Finally.
He constructed an amazing analytical tool for us for me to be able to punch in some numbers.
I missed it.
So let's look at the numbers as far as attendance goes for November releases. And it's actually pretty much the same, except that Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the fourth Harry Potter film, jumps in there at the number 5 spot, over 16 million attendees. But the top 3 remain the same. That gap, the first from like 2008 to 2013, 14 for that YA genre, it was red hot.
Massive. It's crazy to think about. One of the Hunger Games films gets on there. It's the only Hunger Games film on there. And to think about the drop off that franchise had.
Well, Catching Fire was, obviously I think critically the high point for the franchise.
That was the peak. Yeah.
And I think for interest, that was also the peak. I mean, Mockingjay part 1 did well, but there's a drop off then to Mockingjay.
Yeah, I mean, I
Part 2.
really just like rare for a franchise before it's even done telling its sort of main story to kind of have peter out in that way.
Yeah, they'll crescendo up a lot of times, but yeah.
Right, because even like Twilight, it was the final, the Breaking Dawns of the last two.
Yeah. Looking at, by the way, if you're going to look at just raw attendance numbers, Frozen 2 would also land behind Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, and Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The first Harry Potter film for overall weekend attendance, but still strong attendance there. And then let's look up the top animated openings domestically. And yes, the trades don't. I do count The Lion King as an animated film.
Bold.
So it's been going around that Frozen 2 had the third highest domestic animated opening.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I count The Lion King. It's my charting, and I'll do what I want to.
It's only
I count 2019's The Lion King as an animated film.
That first frame is a real shot. Everything else is in.
I count that as an animated film. I don't care if you think I'm wrong. So for me, Frozen 2 has the fourth highest domestic animated opening of all time, behind Lion King 2019, Incredibles 2, Finding Dory, and then Shrek the Third there at number 5. But once again, let's look at those numbers just from an attendance, from the bits index, the butts in the seats, and Frozen 2 jumps out of the top 5. The top movie, The Lion King, stays the same. Incredibles 2 there, Shrek the Third, and then Shrek 2, which again was a phenomenally huge hit.
People love them Shreks.
That jumps in there at number 4, and then Finding Dory goes down to number 5. So, those Shrek movies, particularly the sequels, were again the 2 and 3 particularly were just
real phenomenon.
Those were massive. So. Strong numbers from Frozen, obviously.
We're gonna get a Shrek reboot soon, huh? It's been 20 years now.
It's shocking to me that it's been 20 years.
Right?
Like,
the first one was 2000, right?
2001, I think.
One of those,
yeah. Almost 20 years old. Like, how do you reboot? Whatever. That's a whole other story.
They're going to figure it out.
They'll figure it out.
Live action.
No. That would be horrific.
They did it on Broadway, right?
But Broadway is one thing. Movie's another thing.
They're going to figure it out.
I don't know. But live action seems to be what everyone else is doing.
All humans and a CG Shrek. That's how you do it.
I might be on board for that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the rest of the top 5 before we look at the per theater average. Ford versus Ferrari dropped about 50% for its second weekend. It drops out from first place. That's a little steeper than you sometimes see from a film that has an A+ cinema score, but it's the kind of movie that we'll look and see how it does over the Thanksgiving holiday, and then in the weeks to come. Same with A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, $13.2 million in its opening weekend. It had a $45 million budget, but both of those films, I think, along with Frozen 2, are ones to watch in the next week, because those seem like logical choices for families that are going to be hitting the theaters after Turkey Day. So we'll see how both those films do in the next week.
Yeah, certainly over the next few weeks too, as we get more top 10 of the year lists, more critics lists.
Yes.
So a lot of these films are sort of hoping to get a boost from becoming award season favorites.
The former Los Angeles Online Film Critics Society, now the Hollywood Critics Association.
Yes.
We released our list today end of the year, the Critics' Choice, which I'm also very honored to be a part of. Those deadlines are coming up soon.
Yeah, we just got the Independent Spirit nominations.
You're going to start seeing so many more awards nominations come out, which gives a boost to a lot of these films. Ford versus Ferrari and A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood being
both
two prime
really
ones.
Angling for writing, maybe acting especially noms. So
so that's a marathon more than a sprint for those two films. One film that's had a marathon to get into theaters that didn't quite end up very well was 21 Bridges. That came in at 4th place. It's been a tough road for this movie. You had everything going for it. You had the Russo brothers producing. Their name was all over it. They were lending their clout to it. You had Chadwick Boseman, obviously red hot MCU star, in the lead. Part of the trouble was the distributor STX, and we've talked about this on the show many times before. STX is having a lot of financial trouble, has been having a lot of financial trouble. They haven't had a great year. And
one bright spot, Hustlers.
Hustlers was
but otherwise it's been a really off.
It's been tough for them. And they this is the third release date for this film, largely and reportedly because STX just had to shuffle their funds to market their film.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I don't remember hearing about it as a troubled production when it was being made, and yet it's one of those movies where you start seeing trailers and then it just keeps getting pushed and never quite comes out. I feel like I've been seeing trailers for it for a year.
Yeah, I think some people may have had the image that that perhaps it was a troubled production merely because it had 3 release dates.
Right.
And largely, again, that's not reportedly not the case. It's just that STX has had to pick and choose and prioritize where they spend their money and could not support multiple films being released at one time. So, but it only cost $33 million. That's the upside. So it may crawl to profitability. Reviews were so, not great. I would say they listed negative, but we'll see what it does. However, it's a very crowded marketplace. So 21 Bridges, I think, perhaps might be sort of lost in the shuffle. And it's just one of those movies. I feel bad. I haven't seen the film, but just in general, I feel bad for films that get lost in these shuffles of things that aren't really their fault. Just money and the economy and economics and everything just dealing them a bad hand.
Especially this time of year, it really does happen every year, where there are films that are just like, it's not good or bad, they just get lost in the crush, the end of the year crush. And I mean, this is one that I would think could definitely one day find an audience on streaming.
And it had a September date at one point. September seems like a much more logical place to open this film. It's right in the crush, but it's just sometimes you lose the battles. We talked about it with The Current War, which came out a few weeks ago, which is that it in 2017 got swept up in that whole Weinstein scandal, and through no fault of its own.
Apparently it's pretty good. I actually hear it's not bad.
Almost no one knows because it got completely lost in that whole wave of controversy. So rounding out the top 5 is Midway from Roland Emmerich. It just edged out Playing with Fire for the 5th spot. It's nearing $100 million worldwide, so still trying to eke its way into profitability. Let's look at the top per theater, and Frozen 2 leads the per theater chart, partly because it had a great weekend at over 4,000, almost 4,500 theaters, but not like Endgame, which had like 70,000 plus. I mean, that was a massive opening weekend. It did win the top per theater crown, although it did not blow away the competition. It actually edged out by about 4K per theater. Dark Waters, which is from director Todd Haynes. Mark Ruffalo stars in it and also produced it. That had about 25K in 4 theaters. That's another awards contender that's hitting limited release.
Part of the Mark Ruffalo DuPont shared
Mark Ruffalo and the
universe.
DuPonts. Yeah, they've gone through it. And you can actually see we're very awesome to have Todd Haynes was in studio last week. We did an interview, and that's going to run here in the next couple of weeks on Fandom Entertainment. I was lucky enough to get to interview him and talk to him about Dark Waters.
World-class filmmaker. Carol, Velvet Goldmine,
Wonderstruck,
Safe, Wonderstruck, Far From Heaven.
Far From Heaven is Julia Moore in that film is absolutely incredible.
Recreating Douglas Sirk, and it's great. If you haven't watched it, go watch Far From Heaven.
If you haven't seen Far From Heaven, go watch that. But you can also see that interview with Todd Haynes. I think closer to the wide release date of the film we're going to run.
Cool.
That. So
that's
be on the
great.
lookout for that.
What an opportunity.
Well, let's go from the micro world of the per theater to the macro world of the top 5 worldwide films. As I mentioned, Frozen 2 is the #1 film in the world. Not just the #1 film in the world. $350+ million worldwide weekend. That sets a new record for an animated film. Really blows away the old record, which in my book was held by The Lion King. By my reckoning, but that was at $245 million, so it wasn't even close. No. It just shattered the weekend, the worldwide opening weekend for an animated film. That's in most major markets, including China, although there are several, including Russia, Australia, New Zealand, a few more, that are on the slate for this weekend. So most of the major markets were included in that, although you have a few that could still rack up some money that are opening this past weekend. As I mentioned, Lion King breaks that record, or Toy Story 4, or Incredibles 2, or whoever you had having that top spot. It doesn't matter because Frozen 2 just completely shattered it.
Yeah, wow.
And then if you're looking at the rest of the worldwide box office, domestic grosses really drove the rest of it. There was not a big... Frozen 2 was the big player in China this past weekend. And,
I love that the international title for Ford v Ferrari is Le Mans 66.
Le Mans 66, yeah. Oh, that's right. You weren't with me last week.
No, Joe was here.
Joe was here. Yeah, we talked about that, how in many markets, particularly in Europe, it's called Le Mans 66 because that race is much more well-known there than it is here.
Right.
So I was glad that I could find a good Le Mans 60. I love the alternate posters I can put on the worldwide chart.
Yeah.
I was glad there was a good Le Mans 66 to put on there.
That's cool.
That's one of those weird quirks of distribution that you see sometimes. Just a title change for overseas markets.
Yeah, where they actually have heard about notable car races.
Notable car
60s,
races. Yeah, exactly. So Lon Frozen 2, it did incredibly well. I think it set a Disney record in China for animated films, not live action, but for animation. We are really seeing animation, particularly, and it still is this case in a lot of places, was one of the last genres to truly roll out over the course of several months. And we still see that, particularly with like Australia, New Zealand. They'll coordinate around summer here is winter there, so they'll push things later. But we are seeing with animation more and more Pixar, Disney, and others the same day and date strategy that you've seen with so many of the other big genres of films, Star Wars, Marvel. It's becoming another blockbuster.
I think the barriers between all of these genres are collapsing, and it's just like everybody goes to see animated films. It's not like this niche. Oh, that's just for families. That's just for holidays, like it used to be.
It's just a thing.
Animated movies come out every week.
And I mean, I think this year in particular, as we're looking at the records, whether it's the all-time globally grossing film with Avengers Endgame, or the opening weekend record for live action film, Avengers Endgame didn't just break it shattered it. Now we have the opening weekend globally for an animated film, not just broken but shattered. I think we're going to have the record for most $1 billion grossing movies, again, not just broken but shattered. I know there's been a lot of talk about how the movie business is in trouble, and it's not all incorrect, but at the same time we are seeing a massive amount of interest just in a smaller number of films.
Yeah, it's tastes are becoming sort of homogenized, not eliminated. It's not like the thirst for going to movie theaters and seeing movies is honestly as intense and big as ever. It's just those movies get collected in fewer and fewer hands and fewer kinds of movies.
Which is not without its own massive problems, but I think it would be disingenuous to talk about the decline of the filmmaking industry without acknowledging that there are some films that are just decimating records, even once you adjust for inflation and putting up really impressive numbers.
Yeah, I mean the idea is not I think movie theaters are dying out. It's the kind of movie theater culture we once had is dying out.
Let's look at the 2019 domestic list. Take a good look at this list, Lon, because it is going to be not the same the next time you see it. Hobbs and Shaw is going to go bye-bye.
Take a last look, Michael, because you're never going to see it again.
Say goodbye to these. Well, Hobbs and Shaw, at least, those two. And then we'll see how much damage it can do moving up that chart over the next week. As I mentioned, the Thanksgiving holiday, you can rack up some grosses, particularly on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday following Thanksgiving.
Yeah, us and Hobbs and Shaw definitely in the strike zone right now.
No, I think with Star Wars on the horizon, you're going to be looking at, Us has hung in there since the beginning of the year.
And good for them.
And
proud we are of all
an
of that.
original horror film.
And not only that, people can say, like, it is an original. It's so weird. I like that movie. This is not a knock on that movie. I really enjoy it. But it's so strange. To imagine that movie is one of the 10 most profitable of the year at this point in the year is crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
That's just the power of Jordan Peele.
Let's look at the top 10 worldwide for 2019. And there's also going to be some change for this because, as you'll see, Joker is just a genie's lamp away from taking over Aladdin.
Yeah, I would not have suspected that if you told me that last year.
And about 36 mil from overtaking Toy Story 4. Again, phenomenally successful film. I think it can do both of those things and be a top 5 grosser for 2019, perhaps before Frozen and Star Wars get there. But Joker just again. The story becomes its phenomenal success. And then The Wandering Earth, which another one that's been with us since almost the beginning of the year.
Long time.
Frozen 2's got The Wandering Earth dead in its sights. It's going to freeze that planet pretty soon and take the top 10 spot.
Planet. It's bad.
So both of those lists will change soon. I hope you enjoyed it. They've stayed the same since really the end of the summer. So it's about time for a shakeup. Lon, there is a movie on the horizon that I know we're all excited about. We've been doing this for quite some time. The Countdown to Cats, and I could smell the catnip, Lon. Let's look at this number. It's an impossibly low number. 26 days.
It's under a month.
Under a month. 26. We're 26 days.
Do we have our tickets for this already?
No.
We're gonna after this. We got to go plan the Screen Junkies Cats outing.
I think maybe you won't have trouble finding them, but maybe that's just me.
I don't know.
I don't know. So, Lon, not only have we been mounting down to cats, and there was a new trailer that came out last week. I didn't have time to do a full breakdown for the show, but as it turns out, I maybe should have done a little more research on our cats that we're meeting, because maybe this should have been the first cat that we met.
That's the point. We don't know.
We don't know.
To know them.
We don't know. Today
we're being transparent here about our lack of cat knowledge.
Today we're going to meet Monkish Trap. Monkish Trap is the narrator of Cats.
Oh.
Monkish Trap means that he introduces the younger cats, and by extension the audience, to the world of the Jellicle tribe.
He looks like a young Christoph Waltz if
He
he
does
were
a little
cat.
bit, yes.
Okay.
He has the first song in the show.
Wow.
Jellicle Songs for Jellicle Cats, as well as the invitation to the Jellicle Ball, which articulates what we've been struggling to explain for weeks now. So
Right.
I'm going to read to you now some lyrics from Monkish Trap. And this is literally what we've spent.
Now, I have a question before
Yes.
we begin. The T.S. Eliot poem upon which the show is based, I believe, is called Jellicle Songs for Jellicle Cats, or that maybe was the book.
Right.
Is this that you're about to read a T.S. Eliot poem?
I'm going to say yes. And I base that off of nothing.
Okay. I might look this up and see if this was a T.S. Eliot original.
So this is the premise of Cats. Again, if I'd known, we would have just done this a few weeks ago and just hung up our hats.
This is it.
But this has been a fun journey. So this, according to Monkish Trap, this is the story of cats. Jellicle cats meet once a year at the Jellicle Ball, where we all rejoice. And the Jellicle leader will soon appear and make what is known as the Jellicle choice. When old Deuteronomy just before dawn, through a silence you feel could cut with a knife, announces the cat who can now be reborn and come back to a different Jellicle life. For waiting up there is the Heaviside lair, full of wonders one Jellicle only will see. And Jellicles ask because Jellicles dare, who will it be? Who will it be?
So in case you couldn't tell.
They say the word Jellicle so many times.
A lot. Considering that it doesn't mean anything, they use it a lot.
They do.
So in case you could not tell, not written by T.S. Eliot, that's an Andrew Lloyd Webber.
That's an Andrew Lloyd Webber.
That's ALW.
So yeah, we literally could have just saved ourselves.
I still feel like first of all, I don't know what Jellicle means. So I can't tell the difference between these cats and just general
It's
cats.
like the Sharks and the Jets.
It's a gang?
It's their gang name.
They got jumped in?
Yeah, they're the Jellicle cats. It's like the Screen Junkies. We're the Screen Junkies. They're the Jellicle
also,
cats.
I did not realize old Deuteronomy, that's Judi Dench.
That's Judi Dench.
Like, she's choosing?
She makes the choice.
Oh, I didn't realize. I thought she was in the running.
No, she chooses what cat goes up to the Heaviside.
So she's ineligible.
She might be able to choose herself.
Oh, okay.
And it could be a Dick Cheney situation where she's in charge of the committee to find the cat, and then she's like, "It's me." I don't know.
Well,
I don't know if she could choose herself. Weird. I'm sure it's explained in the show, and someone will correct us. But.
So, no matter, as keeping with this format, no matter how many questions we answer, we're still left with more questions.
Yes. I feel like this is the bottomless pit of Cat's questions.
Oh, no. I'm going to get out of this movie and not sleep for weeks.
We will never get to the bottom. By the way, the new trailer didn't feature anything that I've been reading about or talking about. I don't even know if this could all have been a waste of time, because I don't even know if any of this stuff's going to be in the movie. It looked like Rebel Wilson hitting herself in the face and James Corden being James Corden. I don't think that's in the musical itself.
Yeah, no. I just want to know how, like, Idris Elba's cat is magic? He could disappear at will?
That's my favorite thing. Disappearing
like
McCavity.
Nude Idris Elba cat.
With the fedora. Did you notice he leaves the fedora behind?
Yeah. Oh, I did. I know.
Further legitimizing our thought that the most important thing about McCavity the mystery cat is that he wears a fedora.
This is that. Yeah.
So anyway, that is Lon. We're gonna be in the teens next week. 19 days away.
Can barely contain.
I cannot wait. Yeah. Thank you for sticking with us. And again, I apologize for not introducing the cat who told us what Cats was first, but that's just how it goes when you're meeting cats. It's chaos.
Yeah, we still got a lot of information in. Yeah. I feel like maybe good that we waited on this. Now it's like, now it's all starting to come and fit into place.
And we still have so many to meet.
How? I don't understand.
It's bizarre. All right, Lon, you can't see Cats this weekend, but there's a few things you can see. Number one, tomorrow night, nationwide, a Fathom event, Never Surrender, our Galaxy Quest documentary is screening tomorrow night. Please, please, please go and see it. It is chart eligible. I can get numbers. I can get hard numbers on our movie, Lon.
Yeah.
So and
Come put your butts in the seats.
You know that I can calculate how many of you are going to see the film. I can run those numbers. So please, for numbers' sake and for our sake, and because it's a really fun movie, we would love to see you at the Fathom event tomorrow night to see Never Surrender. That's if you're in North America. I'm told that there will be other options forthcoming if you can't make it to the screening. But right now, really, we'd love to celebrate this with you tomorrow night. There's an exclusive pre-show featuring us. You might see a trailer. A very not lying trailer for a movie that may or may not be featured in the documentary that's later on. So
I wrote some pre-show trivia questions.
Lon wrote some questions. There's a slideshow like in the old days. There's no slideshow, but that's okay. But please.
We dressed up like snacks and do a little dance about going to the lobby. It's great. You'll love it.
So please, we'd love to see you tomorrow night at Never Surrender. We're all going as a group. We're super excited about it.
Yeah, if you like Galaxy Quest, it's a really interesting film. It's not just a celebration. There's a lot of like trivia. We got everybody from the movie. It's really a great experience if you're into Galaxy Quest already and want to hear just like a lot of cool behind the scenes stuff.
And because this is the Thanksgiving holiday weekend here in North America, the wide releases, the movies come out on Wednesday this week. So there are two films hitting wide release on Wednesday. Knives Out from Rian Johnson, a Rian Johnson murder mystery, which I quite enjoyed. And then Queen and Slim also hitting, which I believe I'm gonna review this week, hopefully tomorrow, with some, I saw that this past weekend. So those are the two movies in wide release written by Lena Waithe, who's really coming on strong, started in the world of television and now as a screenwriter.
Just producing like 8 things at once.
Yeah, it's great. It's I love it when a new voice just like bursts onto the scene.
Everywhere all of a sudden.
So yeah, Queen and Slim and Knives Out, both wide releases opening on Wednesday. And then in limited release, another film, a Netflix film.
Yeah, it's going to pop up in January on Netflix.
The Two Popes from Fernando Meirelles, who directed one of my favorite movies of all time, City of God. This stars Jonathan Pryce and Anthony Hopkins as the two popes. Literally.
It's about, Benedict passing power to Pope Francis. It's great because I feel like the moment Pope Francis became Pope, people started noticing that he looks a lot like Jonathan Pryce. In fact, when Pryce ended up on Game of Thrones as the High Sparrow, people were like, oh, they picked him because he purposefully looks a lot like Pope Francis. Finally, we get to see Jonathan Pryce play Pope Francis on screen. We've all been waiting.
I was lucky enough to get to see it last night, and I will say it is fun to see two just great actors just get to share these extended long scenes together. It's
I
great
didn't
to watch
realize also, I saw this on Twitter today, Anthony Hopkins wrote music that's in the film. Did you see that?
He does play music.
He composed part of the score.
I believe it. Oh, well, it's good. It's very good. They're both very good.
They're great actors.
Limited release, you can catch The Two Popes, and then on Netflix, as Lon mentioned, in a few weeks, and the Knives Out, Queen and Slim, both hitting a theater near you. I would recommend both of them, although you can hear more about Queen and Slim later this week. Lon, where can people find you? Anything you want to plug?
Oh, just go to Twitter at LONS. That's where to find me. I'm there talking, getting yelled at by people who love
That's what Twitter is. Yeah, that's what Twitter is. You're talking and getting yelled at. You can find me at Murrell Dan on Twitter, and you can find us and a lot of other people at the Fathom event for Never Surrender tomorrow night. Please join us there, and please join us next week. We're going to be breaking down everything that happened with the Thanksgiving holiday, with the box office, with the movies. How did Frozen 2 do? How did Knives Out do? Did the knives come out? Did all that stuff? Mr. Rogers, Ferraris,
Queen versus Slim.
Queen and Slim. You can. It's a cornucopia of great options. Thanks for watching the show. We'll see you next week.